I had a hostess cupcake a few weeks ago for the first time in years, and I remembered that it was tasty.
Is the butter on there?
I know they were.
Remember when Hostess went bankrupt?
The Mexican company bought them.
Thank you.
Brought them back to life.
Yes.
Oh my God.
It's counter.
Pretty interesting, like you mentioned, Ms. Boyer, Mr. Delbert looking different.
Good morning, everybody. We will call the October 17th, 2022 CRA meeting to order. I would ask if there are any additional amendments to the minutes of September 12th. There were some Scrivener errors that have been rectified. Anything else? I have a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. This time I'll open it up to citizens to be heard to speak to items that are not on the agenda.
Just put it down. She'll put it up. Just put it down.
Hi, my name is Kathy Flaherty, and I am here because I do not think the Mercado plan being presented for approval later today was actually designed to be.
We're going to be
I know,
talking.
but you were doing a festival core presentation. This is a presentation on a festival core, and it's not on the agenda. Okay, at the regularly held August 30th quarterly Cleveland Streetscape Phase 3 upgrade meeting, City Engineer Catherine Cochran, along with CEO Strutt, presented a plan for a festival core, the purpose being a gathering place. There was no notice to the community that this plan or a survey was going to be conducted. Here is Ms. Cochran. So basically, there was on August 30th, there was a presentation for a festival core and surveys done for that presentation. On August 34th, the East Gateway Association posted a meeting on their website, and you can see the plans. You have, it says Gateway Festival Core, turf options, you've got zeros, and it also has the city hosted a Cleveland Streetscape meeting at DeLuca's on 8/30/22. The renderings are two choices for the festival core, and it says that voices were heard. So,
Thank you, Ms. Flaherty.
thank you.
Item 4.1.
Confirm the city manager's appointment of Jay Matthews as the CRA Executive Director to be effective on the date cited in the employment contract.
Thank you, board members. We had a very vigorous response to the posting of the CRA director. Staff narrowed that down to 2 candidates. You had the opportunity to sit with both of them, as well as the community. Ultimately, my responsibility is to make a recommendation to the board. And today I'm recommending Dr. Jay Matthews for your consideration to be appointed as the next director of the CRA. I do think that she has extensive experience. I also think she has a lot of, she spent a lot of time in Clearwater over the years, which was a little surprising to me, and that she, I believe, will hit the ground running. And I also believe that she will do a fantastic job with the soon North Greenwood CRA, which will be coming before you in the next few months.
Any questions for the city manager, acting CRA director? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve agenda item 4.1.
Second.
Anyone from the public to speak to item 4.1?
I just want to stand in support of this recommendation. I think she'll do an excellent job. Thank you.
Have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous. 4.2.
Good morning, Matt Jackson, CRA Assistant Director. Approve shade structure and turf designs for the Mercado public space at the intersection of Cleveland Street and Gulf to Bay. The purpose of this item is to request that the CRA trustees approve shade structure and turf designs for the previously approved Mercado public space in the downtown Gateway neighborhood. The original design for the space was approved by the trustees at the June 15th, 2020 meeting. The construction of the Mercado will be integrated into the streetscape Phase 3 construction work currently underway. Due to the previously approved, uniquely architecturally designed shade structure, cost exceeding monies budgeted, staff research vendors to provide a high-quality design meeting budget constraint. 2 designs were chosen to request public input. Responding to public and staff concerns over no turf being included in the space, staff also researched vendors to include turf options. 2 designs were chosen to request public input. Staff hosted opportunities for the public to provide input at a scheduled Cleveland Streetscape meeting on August 30th, 2022, as well as engaging the public and local businesses. 53 persons provided input through written and electronic means, with the majority choosing the pinwheel shade structure design with cool colors and the round turf shape option. Your approval is recommended. I just would also like to show you those options while we're here. Can you all see the presentation?
Not yet. We have it on it. There you go. Take your time, Matt. We have 53 minutes before the next meeting. So.
Can I tell a story, some jokes, do a
Sure.
dance for you? So this is the first turf option. It was a grid pattern. And the second turf option, as seen before you, is a round pattern. The first shade option, as shown before you, is the butterfly pattern, with the second being the pinwheel option. Then we also had 2 color palettes to show the public with regard to the proposed colors of the shades, the actual fabric, either warm colors or cool colors. And this is a compilation of the public input, whether it be paper surveys, which were done, but we also went to local businesses such as Nature's Food Patch, as well as Seymour Subs, just to get the public as they're out and about to gather their input. The vast majority chose the pinwheel shade structure design with a cool color palette, and then the round turf option, which these are shown before you right here. And then the budget for the shade structure, just over $222,000, far underneath the shade structure design that was uniquely architecturally designed. And the CRA, I don't know the exact date, but a couple years ago, we already provided funds to engineering for the shade structure, so at this time, we're not asking for any additional funds. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Councilmember Albrecht.
So, the roof design with the pinwheel was different than the original, which was more of a square, but it had the same kind of fabric roof. Why was that so much more expensive than the detail now, because it looks like it's got about the same area, at least like from looking at the picture.
So the original was from a company, it was from an architect who designed the structure.
Right.
But it would be unique. It's not like you're going to someone who creates these structures over and over. So with this type of company that we're going with for shade structures, it's at a much reduced price instead of having it uniquely done. This is
I see.
they
Okay.
have fabricated, right?
Vice Mayor?
Vice Mayor?
Thanks. I have a couple questions. Are benches only part of the seating, or the planters? Is that where people are going to be sitting, on the edges of the planters, or will there be benches installed?
Correct. At this time, there's no permanent seating planned. Would, yes, just have the permanent landscape structures to sit on. Of course, during events, people are more than happy to bring their own chairs,
Okay.
their own seating.
Do you think there will be that many permanent planters that are depicted in the picture?
That's what's been provided to me from engineering as the plan. So yes,
Okay. Is there electric available for that park?
there will be electrical available for special events.
Okay. And then will it be lit at night, or the option to have it lit at night?
We are working on lighting, including, we actually looked into a solar option, but it was cost prohibitive. And so Kat with engineering, Kat Corcoran, she's working with Florida Power and Light to provide lighting in there.
Okay.
You mean Duke?
Duke, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm trying to drag this out, Mayor, I'm sorry.
Earlier, months ago, we had talked about possible mosaic tiles, perhaps created by kids. Are those still going to be part of it somewhere?
Yes, it is our plan, as we're going down the road closer to completion of the space, to work with Chris Hubbard and to find an artist to provide an art installation at the site.
That sounds fine. That sounds kind of pricey. I was thinking like maybe provide, have someone help with, because this is such a small community park, to me, I'd like it to be considered to have kids and families design those tiles and put them up in that park, rather than commission art from an artist. I would like that to be considered, because I think, I'm just speaking personally, and there's a sense of warmth when you have art that's created by children, especially local children, that will draw families there to look at their child's art. And when you have, little tiles, 4x4, 5x5, that a family creates or a child creates, and then you put it up, I think it's a wonderful addition to, the community feel of a park. So I hope that could be considered. I think it's also a lot cheaper, just thinking. And then Ms. Corcoran had mentioned in that clip, I guess, that there's thoughts about maybe having a storage shed that could be located there to store chairs and things like that. Where might that be? And is that going to be there like from the get-go or down the line?
I asked her about that specifically, and that they do plan to keep the storage shed option to have that there. As far as exactly where it's going to go, I don't have that location yet.
But you're anticipating that it's part of the original grand opening, it'll be there, and,
Oh, absolutely.
okay. And, yeah, I think that's what I've got. Certainly trash and recycle bins and things like that will be part of the park.
Yes.
Okay.
And touching on your idea about the art, Chris and I actually talked about that.
Did you?
We've already talked about it, so I think that's a wonderful idea.
Okay, so it hasn't been discarded?
No.
Okay.
It hasn't been started.
Great.
You may want to talk to the folks at Sandy Lane. They did a mosaic on the side of the building
Yes.
with the kids. So that's kind of along the same lines. I like the pinwheel. I like the cooler colors. I agree with the surveys on that. We have another covering on some of the recreation facilities in the regular work session today. In that agenda item, it says that they need to be taken down for a storm.
Sure.
Are these going to have to be removed as well? And if so, do we have any idea how long that will take?
They would have to be taken down, and I have very intimate experience with taking down shade structures, working in North Greenwood, and we had 4 smaller shade structures and 1 large one, and my record was 18 minutes getting them all down.
Okay. And so I like the pinwheel design, but are they designed such that if it's raining, the water will cascade, or are there actual gaps between the pinwheels that are I know it's a shade structure, not a rain structure.
Correct.
But I don't know why it wouldn't be built such that it can cascade away from people rather than coming right through.
So it is permeable, so the water it won't be like you're standing out under the rain, but it's gonna come through. But I can talk to Kat about that, but you're just worried that if it's raining and people do congregate in there, that it might just flow over and hit the people that are there.
Well, no, naturally, if it starts raining and people can't get to vehicles or their homes, they're gonna stand under this.
Sure.
But there seems to be, on page 5, on the diagram on the upper right, it looks like there are design gaps between the segments of canvas or whatever the material is, and I don't know why it wouldn't be designed so it would cascade away.
My apologies, now I understand. So in the original thought process was that you didn't want to have full shade all the time, so that it's just a congregating space when there aren't the special events, and that when it did rain, it doesn't become a congregating space for people maybe shouldn't be there at that time. So that was the thought process from the beginning.
All right. Any other questions? Councilmember Albrecht?
So the original plan I saw, they were using the building as a storage or something to that effect, and maybe that would give us some kind of a place where we could have art on the side of the building. Is that still planned?
In my discussions about the art, we hadn't talked about the storage structure, but that could be a great idea, especially dependent upon the design chosen, just to make it look nicer, more integrated in the whole design. So I'll bring up both of your suggestions to Chris. Absolutely.
Anything else? Anyone from the public like to speak to this item?
Oh, I had one more question.
Okay.
What, in my efforts to utilize and engage our advisory boards, did you share this at all with Art and Design Board? Art and Design Culture Board? Okay.
No, we didn't.
That's all.
Okay.
Kathy Clarity, I'm here. Can I get this back up? Basically, I'm happy that it is Mercado instead of a festival core gathering place. And I really hope you do engage the Hispanic community. This has been planned since 2011. It was in the ULI in 2014. It is in the Downtown Development Plan that is active right now, 2018. You guys are basing the surveys to get these colors on a festival core survey. So, I mean, it was never posted. We never had a meeting on Mercado space. It was a festival core space. It wasn't noticed. You had 40 people, 25 voted for a festival core. I don't know about the other ones. I mean, I managed boards for 14 years. I used to put contracts up for boards to be considered. You don't put up false information when it comes to making a decision. I mean, it is this information for this plan, but it was a festival core was a gathering place to give the keys to the ladies at the East Gateway. It wasn't a Hispanic cultural center. It wasn't designed like that, and I think this is the problem I have with this so much. So I really do hope that when you guys move forward with this plan, that it becomes a Hispanic cultural center. I really do. I mean, maybe it could have been the bright colors if people had known it was going to be a Mercado, you know? No one got a chance to vote. I mean, you guys changed the notices after the meetings were held. Nobody does that. Nobody does that. Nobody has a meeting and then goes back and changes the purpose for a meeting after the meeting was held. That's illegal. I think it's illegal. It was illegal in my business. When I managed condos, I know I could get in a lot of trouble for that. I mean, I had to swear. I mean, when I presented information to someone, it was truthful information. I can't trust anything. I mean, I don't know. I'm really hoping the CRA director will come in and take a look and see all the policies that the CRA has been using and the people that you guys have been having contracts with, and see if you guys are trustees for a blighted community's funds. These aren't your funds. This isn't a privilege. I mean, it's a privilege. You guys, I mean, they're not your monies. They're my monies. I live there. I have a business there. I have a home there. Does anyone in this room actually live in the CRA other than myself? No.
Yes, right here.
You live in the CRA?
Yes.
All right.
As
All
well
right,
as
then
the
why don't
DEP
you
footprint.
support the CRA?
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve item 4.2?
I move to approve item 4.2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Director's report?
So we had some questions that I'd like to address. The first was an update on events in Station Square. The Market Marie is moving to Station Square. We're also having a salsa in the district this Saturday night from 6 to 11 p.m. Looking forward to that. The Hispanic Farmers Market, this market is no longer in the CRA. It's moved south to 610 Fort Harrison. The South Ward School, we had a question on getting analytics phone calls from the police calls within the CRA. Chief Slaughter responded that those reports are typically done at the end of the fiscal year, and we will have those within the next couple weeks. Also, there was a question on street outreach with Kathy Ham. Chief Slaughter said that is going well, with nothing further to report there.
Well, I would just, if I could, I would just mention that Kathy Ham became a full-time employee last week. She was going through orientation last week, and this week she should be fully engaged in the work that she was previously doing as kind of an independent contractor. The police chief and I thought it would make a lot of sense to bring her on full-time, so he changed the job description for one of his open positions and was able to bring her on board. So we're very happy that the critical work she was doing in the community will continue, because we were going to lose her, frankly. Chief Slaughter has said that she's the best that he's ever worked with, and so it's very good that we could keep her with the city.
Thank you.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Are you finished yet with your?
I think there were still a few more that I'd like to address. As far as new businesses, when the CRA is, as you all know, at the 530 Pub, it's not a new business, but new owners. I've eaten there a few times. It's fantastic. I'm not sure if you're all aware, Tiny Paws on Gulf to Bay. It's a pet grooming area where you can also have your pets kept there. And then Carol Lynn's moved into the old Cleveland Street cafe space here downtown. And I've also been there a few times, and again, very good. As far as businesses that have left, I think you're all aware that the Jamaican Cafe has left, so that space is vacant and available. The question was raised about any projected openings of any businesses. I don't have any dates set in stone. We're still working with the owners of the Dueling Piano Cafe on Cleveland Street and their other adjacent space just to get them through the building permit stage. And the last request was about Know Before and their plans to stay in Clearwater. I've not received any word that they are leaving, but I'll be reaching out to their owner, Stu, just to ascertain their status.
And I had reached out to Stu Showerman, the CEO, founder, just to congratulate them on the equity investment that they received, purchase actually, they received a couple of weeks ago. He gave me no indication that they were leaving. So I would also just mention that the work in the the right-of-way work that's ongoing in the East Gateway area continues to move forward and on time, and the expectation is that work will be done next spring.
Next spring for what?
Complete.
Yeah, completed all the right-of-way.
Oh, yeah.
Phase
from the
3 of
East Gateway up there.
streetscape will
Okay,
be completed.
okay.
And I would like to add to that, the folks out there, the workers, have been fantastic we've had some phone calls where people said they couldn't access their business. And so I went out a few times and drove just to make sure I could still access their business. And specifically Tiny Paws, and they mentioned that the workers out there, when they saw that they kind of put signs wouldn't let them have ingress into their businesses, they'd move it to make sure that there's always access to each business.
Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
I had a couple of questions about, you said the Market Murray is moving to Station Square. When is that scheduled?
The first market's in November. I can get the specific date if you'd like it.
Okay, so in November they'll be at Station Square?
Correct.
Do they feel okay with that? I mean, was that a mutual decision?
It's on November 12th, and yes, it's a wonderful place to have the market. Better parking, the aesthetics, instead of there at Court and Myrtle, which I don't think we can even use that anymore, but
Well, and so I like that market. I go to it pretty frequently.
Sure.
I go because it's easy to get in and out of parking. And, it's real visual right there on Myrtle. I'm just wondering about the visibility of it at Station Square and parking. I get that we do have the parking garage at Garden, which will be free on a Saturday, correct? Mm-hmm. Are we planning some extra signage to get people directed to Station Square for that Saturday morning market? Because they've been there for over a year, and it's really growing.
well, they have a robust marketing plan and a great percentage of people who actually attend the market. So I know that they're marketing to make sure that people know of the change. As far as putting out new signage, I can see what's allowable. I don't believe we can put out either A-frame or the garage sale signs within public right-of-way.
We can't put a dynamic message board at the corner of Myrtle and Court.
That would be an option.
That's certainly one of the things that I've been thinking about, but I need to check with the planning director to make sure our signed ordinance will permit that for a non-governmental event.
Councilmember
To
Teixeira.
fully answer your question, when they addressed the Downtown Development Board, they were very happy about Station Square. They feel that it's actually more conducive to the design of putting all the tents up. So they didn't express any reservations at all, and they were talking about parking as well, and they're really focusing on social media to educate the public on where to park. But they were very happy with Station Square. They actually went so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, that they actually wanted it there at one time, and then it was redirected, so they were happy to come back, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, great, that's what, and then, hopefully at the next CRA meeting, we can have an update on some affordable housing updates in the CRA, what's going on with that. Do we anticipate additional staffing when we have our new CRA director on board and the North Greenwood becomes official?
I would imagine because of the North Greenwood addition that we will need additional staff person or two, but I would want to make I would want to give that opportunity to the new director to determine what is needed, and then kind of working with her.
When do we expect her to be on board?
Fairly soon, I think by the beginning of December, I believe, yes, beginning of December.
Okay.
Great. And then, one thing I'd like at some point is an overview of some code, our code that relates to facades of buildings that have broken glass windows and things like that, because we have a number of them, right down Fort Harrison that I drive by daily. And so it'd be nice, and they're in our CRA, to know what levers we might have there.
But that's code. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's in the CRA or not.
Right.
Code
Right.
should be following up on those issues.
So I'm just, so I heard you
Yeah.
correctly, for broken windows and...
Yeah, I'll take some pictures, I'll walk around and take pictures of these specific ones that stand right out, and just an update about what's the process and where we're at.
We have been attempting to enforce we have been enforcing some of the issues. Actually, some of the businesses on Fort Harrison that have put paper up
Yeah,
in windows
yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that. So we'll continue to.
Okay,
We'll definitely, though, have some kind of presentation.
okay. And then I think, I know that Miss Flaherty came and spoke, and she sends sometimes over 10 emails a day. And I just think, her question should be addressed publicly about kind of with the buck stops here response of what's the story of a name change on it, and, is she correct that that it went from Festival Court to Mercado post-meeting, and just answer those questions, because she made a public statement, and then we can just be done with it.
Well, some of her behavior, frankly, she ran off. I was going to address that. She sent an email either last week or the week prior about the contractors destroying roots on trees. And, we sent arborists out there. They were doing exactly what was recommended by the arborist, which was clearing up some roots. She berated and cursed at, the contractors and our employees. And I frankly am tired of her behavior. I think it's unacceptable. And I would have addressed it had she not run out. But I really, she makes allegations that are unfounded. And, we have a responsibility to listen to everybody, whether they're right or wrong. But, one of my favorite quotes is, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. And sometimes she puts forth statements like they're absolute facts, where the reality is they're utterly false and unfounded. And so, to an extent, her credibility has been undermined by her behavior. And at some point, you have to call that out too.
But can you respond to her point about the Mercado and the name change?
I feel as though we have on
Yeah.
previous occasions that we've responded to that. We've tried to explain what the genesis of how the festival court came to be. It's whenever we've responded, we've been accused of being liars, and so I'm not sure that a response to the comments today will have any different impact. I mean, I would like to say, though, that the allegations that have been made how insensitive we are to the Hispanic community is absolutely not true. One of the great frustrations when you're in these positions, the public positions that we are in, of course we receive a lot of emails. Some are completely inappropriate, like many of the ones that she sends. But to categorically state that the city does not care about our Hispanic population is categorically false. I have met, as has all of you, met with the Hispanic Outreach Center. I've met with individuals in the Hispanic community. We are collaboratively working on many, many initiatives. So,
Sister city relationship.
Sister city. So, I think it's important that when people make allegations that we respond with the truth, and that's why I felt it important to make the statement about the Hispanic community.
Well, I feel we fully support the Hispanic community. I mean, I know I do and have enjoyed that relationship. But, you know, was she true in saying that a name change happened after a meeting occurred? Because we did have printed social media that called it the Festival Core, and then we have printed social media that calls it the Mercado. And so I think her point is, who authorized a use of Festival Core in social media, and why was something changed after a meeting occurred?
Staff was responding, so I've called it the Mercado since I got here.
Me too.
Which was about a year ago. It's my understanding that individuals in the East Gateway Neighborhood Association had an interest in changing it to the Festival Core. We try to be responsive as staff to the leadership and neighborhood organizations and so forth. I don't think it was appropriate for staff to have changed the name, hence the reason why we brought that to you. You made an affirmative statement at the last meeting that Mercado was the name. And so I think there was a mistake made with that. We all make mistakes, and so we just need to move on. It's the Mercado. We are going to get the project done. Thankfully, we're going to get it done within the context of this construction because it would have been cost prohibitive to bring everyone back to develop that. So I greatly appreciate the board's support today so we can move forward.
Yeah, it's been Mercado since we envisioned it, unfortunately, back in 2011 when I was mayor last go around. It's a shame that it hasn't been built to this, it's taken this long, but it's going to get done, and I think we ought to remain with the name. Councilmember Tejeda.
If you recall last council meeting, my closing statements were talked about this very issue. Abusive, incessant communications. And this is the exact example, where just absolute false information is being communicated in an abusive language. And just to talk about this specific example about the Spanish community, and this can be checked, I reach out to them almost every week, make sure that I understand their concerns, and I'm actually encouraging them to be more involved. And so I find this ineffective and frustrating to be constantly emailed in an uncivilized manner and to be constantly accused of things that are so blatantly untrue is exhausting. And at some point, we're going to have to decide how to proceed. How many emails we're being accused is enough. And it has there's no grounds for the accusations. And it's just incessant. Even during a hurricane, emails kept coming. And so I made a pledge that I will read and listen to everyone, but I reserve the right not to respond to that type of communication. And I just want to make it public record that I will not respond to abusive communications.
Vice Mayor.
But we do not, and go back and change social media posts, correct? We don't change the information, how it was listed after a meeting? Is that true?
I would have to ask Joelle if...
Because if it was listed on, the 12th as Festival Core, and then it happened, and then we go back and we change it to Mercado post-meeting, just so that whether it happened or not, or, that we don't do that going forward.
Okay, yes. No, again, I think there was a mistake made.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they Thankfully, the board has affirmatively stated that Mercado is the name since 2011, and that's what we're moving forward with.
Anything else?
I just wanted to thank the CRA, Ruth Eckert Hall, CRA staff, Ruth Eckert Hall, and many other businesses for all the wonderful Halloween events that are being planned, or that have happened and that are being planned in the downtown area for not only the 31st, but there's going to be movies at Capitol Theater. There's a lot of events that are happening, so I just want to take my hat. There's a good group of people that have come together to really activate the downtown, and I just want to make sure that we recognize their work. So that's the only thing I wanted to.
Very good. Well, we are adjourned until next time. We'll start the work session in 20 minutes. Good morning, everybody. We will call the October 17th, 2022 work session to order. Item 2.1.
Approve the third substantial amendment to the City of Clearwater 2019-2020 Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Chuck Lane, Economic Development Housing Department. This item is to amend the city's plan for our use of CDBG CV funding. In 2020, HUD granted a special allocation of community development block grant funds to help local governments prepare for, prevent, and respond to the pandemic. The city received two allocations totaling $1,351,560. So at first, we plan to use the funds to support businesses that were closing their doors because of the pandemic. As the guidance rolled out, it became more and more difficult to use these funds for that purpose. Later, we shifted to helping people who were financially impacted by the pandemic with housing costs. At the time, Pinellas County was implementing a rent assistance program. That was a very well-funded program that would assist households countywide, including Clearwater residents, so we didn't see a need to duplicate that program. So we focused on the home ownership side. We stood up a mortgage assistance and foreclosure prevention program. We were surprised at the lack of response to that program. We helped some households, but not to the extent that we anticipated. So now we're looking at an expenditure deadline. We need to spend 80% of the funds by June 2023. So we're proposing to add some eligible public facility improvement projects that are ready to go. Two of them are at our club child care facilities, one in the North Greenwood and one in the downtown Gateway. At both sites, we plan to fund improvements to the HVAC systems where, as air flows through the system, the virus is eliminated. Another eligible use of CDBGC funding is to create outdoor recreation opportunities. So we're planning to use these funds to assist with the construction of the recreational pier in Lake Bellevue and also the children's playground at Ross Norton Recreation Center. Adding these four projects is really the purpose of this amendment. Of course, we'll continue with current contracts which total about $520,000. Among those contracts are ones you recently approved with the Pinellas County Early Learning Coalition and the Homeless Leadership Alliance. And there are other contracts as well that we're still managing. I'll take questions, please.
Any questions for Mr. Lane? Vice Mayor?
So, Chuck, I consider you a friend. I mean, we talk. And so you know I'm going to be asking questions about this one. So I'm going to start with the last document on the attachment. And so we are removing $657,763 from emergency rental, mortgage, and utility assistance, housing navigation, case management, and related homeless prevention services to residents. To me, that's shocking.
Well, we have a housing navigation contract that was recently approved by council that the HLA is managing, so we're doing that. What we're reducing specifically is the mortgage assistance and foreclosure prevention program. We're not eliminating a rent assistance program. In fact, with the annual action plan for the current fiscal, we're going to fund the Clearwater Housing Authority with the TBRA program, tenant-based rental assistance program. That will kind of replace what we're offsetting here. So that's good news. They're going to help their voucher holders that are awaiting placement. So we're still working in that realm. It's just we're eliminating this from the CDBG side because it's important that we move these funds. We don't want to pay them back in June.
I know, I get that. But don't we have people calling nearly every day that can't pay their utility bills, that are late on their rental payments?
We do. And utilities are another thing. We're not able to pay city-owned utilities with this funding source. There are rules that the federal government has that doesn't make that possible for us to do. It wouldn't be eligible.
But we could pay first month's, last month's security deposit. We can help with that to help people get over that hump to get into a rental.
We can, and we're trying to upload our home art program. We're having some challenges with that, and we do have some contracts there that will provide those services. As you know, we ran a rental assistance program for about 4 or 5 months, and it took every ounce of energy our department had, our division had. Not only that, we took staff from the library.
Right.
It is incredibly staff intensive to run a rental assistance program with the documentation that we need to collect and provide.
But I'm not suggesting that staff runs that. I'm suggesting that we give that money to another organization in the county that will help with Clearwater residents for first month's, last month's security deposit, all that kind of thing.
The county is anticipating additional emergency rental assistance program money. They ran through ERAP 1 and 2, which was that funding source. We didn't get any of that. The county got it, St. Pete got it. They're anticipating another allocation so they can step up that program again. You know, one of the challenges that everybody has seen through the expenditure of CDBG-CV is capacity issues with nonprofits. It's not just us that has to do a lot of work in administering a program. If we outsource it, someone else has to do it. Very few of these nonprofits have that capability.
Can they use any of this money for administrative, or does it
Well,
have to flow?
That's really what it is. When you look at public service programs, it is administrative funding. We can fund salaries with this for them to implement these programs. And we've put out several NOFAs over the 2 years. We've had people apply and people try to spend the funds, and we're just not seeing the capacity to do so. That's where we are.
Can you answer the question about money that's going to be allocated to Pet Grooming on the Go, LLC?
That's already spent.
How did CDBG?
That was the one business we were able to help through the business assistance program.
At the beginning of COVID, or?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that this money has done that y'all ought to know is when we had the issue with Prospect Towers and it was purchased by an investor, these funds we partnered with Directions for Living to help find those people answers that were being evicted, or at least being priced out. And that was really a success story for us with these funds. We're just about finished with that project. We've moved just about everybody out of there that needed help.
So have you, can we contact people like Kevin Chenault with the Salvation Army here, who has emergency funds for families? So if somebody calls the Salvation Army and says, hey, my car broke down, I can't get to work, I'm afraid of losing my job, and they can help with that, get over that hump.
Yeah.
Can we allocate some of these funds?
We can do that this is a substantial amendment. There are things that trigger a substantial amendment. One of them is is reallocating more than 25% of our funds. We could enter into a contract with Salvation Army, for example, that it's smaller than that amount to help them fund those activities.
Yeah.
We can do that. We're not having a lot of people come forward. Kevin Chenault is very well aware of our programs. He's on our board, our Neighborhood and Affordable Housing Advisory Board.
So people like Kevin Chenault or Michael Blue, who pays for plane tickets, train tickets, whatever, bus tickets to get our actual unsheltered homeless out of Clearwater to their families in other areas that are going to support them. He needs money to make that happen. He's put over 60 people off the street in the last 5 years. In the last 4 years, he's assisted 66 people to send them home. Can we give some of these funds to them? I mean, I'm all, here's what CDBG funds are supposed to go for. Provides annual grants on a formula basis to states, cities, and counties to develop viable urban communities by providing decent housing and a suitable living environment, and by expanding economic opportunities principally for low and moderate income persons. The program was designed to reinforce several important values and principles of community development. CDBG's flexibility empowers people and communities to design and implement strategies tailored to their own needs. Emphasis on consolidated planning expands and strengthens partnerships among all levels of government and the private sector. And then with the CDBG CV coronavirus specific funds, I have a hard time thinking that, using our funds for HVAC improvement and the pier at Lake Bellevue, and I fully support that dock pier at Lake Bellevue and those enhancements at a city park. There's something that tightens in my stomach about using these CDBG CV funds for that. I think that it should come out of a different bucket. And, part of the stats that I'll just say is, we had a special NOFO, the Continuum of Care, for HUD money for unsheltered homeless specifically. we had $13,296,365 worth of grant proposals, 13 million, that these nonprofits in our county are working at having ideas in order to deal with our unsheltered homeless, the hardest to deal with, people who need permanent supportive housing. We were allocated, and we haven't got it yet, but we're hoping, $4,733,000 or so. So there's a great need. We have no fewer than 80 families that we know of at any time living in cars in Pinellas County. And I just, can we use these funds to put those families who are living in cars in non-congregate shelters? Again, you said we can't pay their utility bills, so their water doesn't. So you're assuring me that our players in Clearwater, so Chrissy Bond with St. Vincent de Paul, Kevin Chenault with the Salvation Army, Michael Blue with this Going Home Coalition, HEP, all of them are aware that we're gonna take this 1.6 million or whatever it is, and reallocate it to building structures and stuff.
Well, I haven't told them we're doing that, but they're all aware of the program. One thing you have to remember about this is you have to tie it to a COVID impact. And as we get further and further from the onset of the pandemic, it gets more and more difficult to do that. You mentioned people that are living in cars and homelessness. This rent, this crisis we're talking about, rent increases dramatically like we've never seen. You can't just tie that to COVID. It's not that simple.
But tying a pier at Lake Bellevue to COVID?
Well, one of the things, HUD doesn't give us a lot of specific examples on what we can spend money on. We have to use our own interpretation. One of the few specifics that they gave us was if we create outdoor recreational opportunities, that is an eligible use of these funds.
I know.
Councilmember Bunker.
Well, I have to agree with the Vice Mayor that was one of the big things that caught my eye, is the fact that homelessness, money is taken away from that and going toward HVAC and the pier. I appreciate the fact that there's a ticking clock on the money, that it has to be spent by certain dates, so you're trying to find a way to spend it. These nonprofits struggling to actually use the funds that we have available for them. You mentioned in your opening remarks that you were surprised at the lack of demand there was for it, but it's largely the fact that they don't have the staff to get this money out, or people weren't aware of it.
Well, that's a big part of it, but with the mortgage assistance program, which is really where we park most of these funds, we really thought we'd have a lot of success with that, and we didn't. And I don't think it was an awareness issue. I think we did a decent job. I think our partner did a decent job in calling attention to that program. Perhaps, with home ownership, it's hard to get to folks that are under 80% AMI. Most of those people are renters. That might have been the core of the issue there. I don't know. Because CDBG funds are under 80% AMI, area median income.
Yeah.
That might have been the issue there.
Yeah. Again, I hope that these other issues are addressed, as you said, in other ways. But it's a little sad to see that we couldn't have a better achievement, but I think that's across the board throughout the country, where money that was meant for COVID recovery seems to have been misused. And I'm not saying it's misused here.
Hasn't been misused.
No, I didn't mean to suggest that.
Let's make sure.
Yeah, that wasn't what I was suggesting.
I mean, the Fed sets down the guidelines. We go by their playbook.
Right.
I think, you could disagree with some of the criteria. I think that's often the case. But you're also talking about, I think we have 440 municipalities in Florida, 67 counties. Now multiply that by 50. It's hard to make guidelines that are going to fit every application.
I was on a call with the Jacksonville field office, which covers about 2/3 of Florida. It doesn't cover the southern part of the state. Under their jurisdictions, they're seeing across the board about 17% expenditure of CDBG. We're not the only ones in this situation. This is common across the board, and we're trying to do something to fix that, to at least help our citizens and spend this money so we don't have to give it back. That's the intent of this amendment.
I mean, at least the HVAC systems, I mean, you're putting things that will make the air better
That's a direct
even
quote.
after this,
That's a
whether
direct
it's
quote.
COVID, flu, or, you know, those kids bring home everything to their parents. Vice Mayor.
So Chuck, this FSI Connect Family Services Initiative, which is part of that PEMS, so in their big flyer, right, who we help, families living in Pinellas County, families with at least one child under 18 or who are pregnant, families with income 250% of federal poverty guidelines or less, and how they help: rent assistance, utility bills, groceries, childcare, infant needs, counseling, transportation, education, and jobs. Thinking about groceries, childcare, infant needs, counseling, and transportation, as well as rent assistance, all of those seem to be pretty easy to write a check for. Like if you have a family in crisis and you need, infant formula or diapers or whatever they need, can we, I guess would those CDBG CV funds go for this?
Potentially, if there's a COVID impact, yes, but it's not as simple as writing a check. They need to apply in our
Right.
program. We need to do our due diligence, and then we need to get into a subrecipient agreement. It's a process just to get them under contract. Now, we can do that. We have some flexibility with smaller contract amounts that we could talk to folks like that and the Salvation Army. We still have some flexibility. This doesn't mean we can't do it, spend the money on those things.
Okay. So the money's not going out the door today or Thursday, and that what's the amount that it's 1.3 or 6 or something?
We're going to spend about another $850,000 by June.
Okay, so out of the 850,000, we have 2 HVACs, we have a pier, we have a park thing. Are you saying that we do have some more money that we may be able to help with the PEMS? We might be able to,
We do. We have a pretty healthy admin.
Michael
account.
Blue, with getting, those are Clearwater homeless that,
It's possible, if we can tie it to a COVID impact, it was very likely eligible. The reason we have flexibility, we had some admin money. We have contracts with nonprofits that we work very well with. If there's a need for them to reduce their funding, I know they will at our request. Whatever we can do to meet that expenditure deadline, that's the priority at this
Yep.
point.
do they have to just be encumbered or spent?
Spent.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lane. 3.1.
Approve payments totaling $150,415.29 to settle claim for damage to solid waste vehicle.
Good morning, Monica Mitchell, Assistant Finance Director. This item is for the payment of a claim having to do with a solid waste vehicle. It was traveling on San Sebastian Way on July 26th with the boom inadvertently extended. It struck some utility wires, which ignited, causing the truck to catch on fire, and there were damages sustained to the utility wires sought in the city right-of-way and a property at 2003 Sebastian Way. The vehicle was appraised and determined to be a total loss.
I don't see anyone here from solid waste. I mean, I know accidents happen, but, Mr. Jennings, are the training protocols and other things being followed up on this one?
Absolutely.
Because really the majority of the cost is the vehicle.
Right. No, certainly staff is following up on all of this, and one of the things that you approved in the most recent budget was a training manager through HR. So we could start doing a lot more training throughout the city with staff. This is one of those areas which we probably need to spend a little bit more time on in terms of training, so absolutely.
Other questions? Consent?
Yep.
Thank you, Monica. 4.1.
Approve the first addendum to the collective bargaining agreement as negotiated between the city and IAFF Local 1158.
Good morning, Council. Billy Kirkpatrick, Human Resources. So I'm here today to request your approval for the first addendum to the current IFF contract. This addendum includes 2 changes. One is a resumption of a COLA for the firefighters. It's a 1.5% annual increase after 5 years. And the other part of the addendum is to make it so that we no longer have to negotiate pensions separately.
Any questions? Consent?
Yes.
4.2, thank you.
Amend Clearwater Code of Ordinances, Section 2.421 to reestablish a cost of living benefit for firefighters and pass ordinance 9634-22.
This is in order to put that addendum into practice.
So we'll discuss that further on Thursday. 5.1,
Approve a purchase order to Shade Systems for the purchase and installation of athletic shade structures.
Morning, Mayor, Council. Jim Halios, Director of Parks and Recreation. This item that we have before you is a piggyback contract with Shade System Structures of Florida, and it's for the installation of 19 new shade structures at Countryside Community Park and Sid Lichten Park for our Countryside and Clearwater Little League programs. Countryside Little League has raised and will donate $40,000 to the project, and the Clearwater Little League has raised and will donate $30,000 to the project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
questions? Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the public-private partnership with Clearwater Little League and Countryside Little League making a contribution. I think that's a nice way to operate, and appreciate that.
The warranty seems good, Jim. I was curious, I asked earlier with the Mercado and downtown, these are going to have to be removed if we have a storm coming.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually just talking with Matt Anderson this morning, and Matt is down in Charlotte County. So he's been seeing a lot of this, and they did not remove their fabric coverings, and they were all destroyed. So we had talked about that, about how we're going to come up, we need to really make sure we have a plan in place, which we do now, but we're going to be adding 19 to the inventory, so we need to make sure that should something like that be coming our way, we may need a little time ahead of time to get out there and get those taken down so we can be proactive.
Are we going to take them down when you're out of season so they're not sitting in the elements?
We can possibly discuss that. Usually we don't do that at most of our other facilities, but then again, like you said, it's seasonal. With it being fall ball and spring ball, I don't know how much downtime we really have there, maybe 2 or 3 months. I mean, we can look at it. I guess we'll just do a cost analysis of what that would be.
Well, I don't know what it'll add to the longevity.
Sure.
I mean, the 10-year warranty sounds great. I'm actually surprised it's that long. What is the expected lifespan of these?
Those usually, I'll have to double check, but yeah, over the 10 years, we've had some now, I want to say going on 15 to 20 years where we've had no issues with.
Okay. Any other questions? 5.2? Well, consent on 5.1.
Authorize guaranteed maximum price proposal to Keystone Excavators for park improvements at Sewell Road Park.
Yeah, this item is to engage with Keystone for a CMAR contract out at Sewell Road Park. Existing, what we have out there is a very underutilized, I want to say it's like an outdoor floor hockey court. Doesn't get used a lot at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to mill that court down and then repave it and then add on an additional section to put 3 more pickleball courts out there. And then we'll go back after and utilize our fencing contract to put fencing around that. And the reason for that is that it's much cheaper for us to utilize our fencing contract that we have than if we were to go out and utilize it with a CMAR, then they're going to put their amount on it. And, there's all kinds of upcharges. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that.
Any questions? Vice Mayor?
So this looks interesting. I think addition of 3 pickleball courts is probably good because people are loving the pickleball. So it's interesting that I went to our website for this park and it lists the amenities as playground and tennis court, but it doesn't list the roller hockey. Is it still used? I mean, you're saying it's not used very much, but it's not locked up or anything.
No, it's not locked up. It's just, we've gotten to the point with that where the usage was so minimal that we really didn't want to invest any more money in redoing it. So, we don't really list that as kind of a current amenity out there. It's basically a slab of asphalt with some lines painted on it.
Okay. Is there lighting that's?
No.
Okay. And are you planning to install a bench or 2 for those pickleball players?
Yeah, we have our amenity inventory, and we'll utilize what we have in our amenity inventory to put down there as well.
And again, I think because of the popularity of pickleball, it sounds like a great idea. Did you solicit any feedback from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, or what kind of resident engagement did you use, or just knowledge of pickleball?
Just knowledge of pickleball and the fact that we don't have any pickleball courts currently in the city. We have 3 coming online out at Del Oro Park. But, we look for opportunities strategically throughout the city where we can place these items because people are looking for them, and this seemed like the most logical place to put it. There's ample parking there, there's tennis courts, and then there's the playground, so there's a lot of space, and we figured that would be a good place to put it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions? Consent?
Yep.
6.1.
Approve the final plat for Airport Drive Villages located at 514 Brandon Avenue.
Good morning, Tara Kivett, City Engineer. This item was asked, we asked that it be postponed. The developer, we were working with them on addressing our comments, so we were giving them as much time as possible, and they just didn't address our comments appropriately.
So we can pull this?
Yes, please.
All right. 6.2.
Approve the request from the owner of real property described as parcel ID 1529, 1538, 74, 015, 0060 Court Street for a 5-foot wide platted utility easement.
Good morning. Suzanne Kramer, Real Estate Services Coordinator. The purpose of this vacation is to allow for a 14-unit multifamily apartment. There are no city utilities present within the easement. City staff have reviewed the vacation and have no objection.
Any questions? All right, we'll discuss that on Thursday. 6.3.
Accept a 4-foot wide drainage and utility easement from William and Lauren Corser for installation, repair, maintenance, and replacement of underground utilities at 1242 Idlewild Drive.
I can't add anything else to that. City Engineering Division of Public Works recommends acceptance of this easement.
Any questions? Consent?
Yep.
6.4.
Approve supplemental to work order to Mead and Hunt for on-call traffic engineering technical support services.
Good morning again, Tara Kivett, City Engineer. This work order will provide staff with assistance on permit reviews, impact fees to address our workload until we fill vacant positions and train staff. Any questions?
Questions? Yes, Vice Mayor.
So this is $195,000 until the 2 unfilled positions are filled to meet traffic engineering workload demands. So my question is, how far do you think this money will take us?
We definitely have some peaks and valleys, but we've been spending as much as $30,000 a month.
Okay. So I guess, do we need to increase starting salaries? What can we do to, get some people on board?
I think that ultimately I'll maybe defer to HR, but we have been struggling. One of these positions has been vacant for about a year, the other one since January. One of them, we got 18 applicants for the one in the last over a year. We interviewed a couple of them. It's a combination of, we've been hoping to get someone with some traffic experience. We're now realizing that's not going to happen. So we're taking a step back, re-advertising, looking for just general positions, even putting out for a project manager position, which doesn't necessarily need to be an engineer. We did hire a young man a few months ago, so we're training him, but he's just not up to speed yet to do, especially permit related. It's very time sensitive. We have to stay on track with that. It's not just managing a project, it's actually reviewing, like the Nursery Road project, for instance, that type of thing.
Mr. Jennings.
These are very difficult positions to fill because they're technical and professional nature. The private sector is, at this point in the market, the private sector is paying a lot more than what a municipality could. But Tara has been working closely with me, with HR, and Michael to figure out exactly the right job descriptions, whether they do need to be an engineer. So I think we're making some progress, but it's it's a very tight market for these type of positions.
But we need to also work to keep people.
You know, we'll reach out to them and they've already found a job, or we schedule interviews, we get some no-shows, you know, so we're trying to improve our timeliness on getting these interviews set up and moving forward. And then we've interviewed a handful, we offer them, but we can't pay what they would like, or we interview them and they're not qualified.
Are we competitive with other municipalities in kind of like a multi-county area here?
I'll defer to HR on that.
Okay.
I don't really have all those details.
Okay.
It appears we're not.
I mean, Billy's not here. Can you answer that, Ms. Boyer?
Yes.
Get to put on that hat?
Yeah, that's no problem.
Can you come to the mic?
Good morning, Jennifer Poyer, Assistant City Manager. So HR did do an internal review of all of our positions. That was what a lot of the budget enhancements and salaries was addressing, and we did find that we were slightly low. What we know that we are incredibly behind the market on is actually in terms of salary offers. So whereas our range are competitive, how far into that range we can make a hiring offer is what is limiting us, because we know that other municipalities will go all the way through the range. We have since, with approval, adjusted our authority in terms of how far into the range that we will go. That was effective as of October 1st, and I'm sure that HR will be working on that. The project manager, I think, is something that, you know, is going to help. It won't be the answer to all things by any means whatsoever. So as soon as that hits the street, I expect that we will have additional opportunities as a result of utilizing that. So between that, the changes that we made in pension will make a big difference, as well as being able to hire further into the range that is now competitive, hoping that we'll get some movement on these positions that have been vacant for a while.
Councilmember Albrecht?
So this is a question for, well, you may be able to answer it.
Sure.
So I think the person that had left that was important was Mr. Elbow, was one of them. Did he go into the private, or did he get stolen to another municipality?
Ben Elbow is, I believe, in Pasco County right now. Working for Pasco County, yes. He was looking at relocating out of state. I think that's why he left initially. Plans changed. He ended up staying local and got a job with Pasco County.
Oh. Okay.
Consent?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. 7.1.
Presentation on Clearwater 2045 Comprehensive Plan, Vision Statement, and Preliminary Framework.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jamie Lopko with Planning and Development. We're here today to look at the update of the rewrite of our comprehensive plan, including the updated version of the vision statement and preliminary framework. As you'll recall, it was brought to City Council back in November of 2021 by our consultant, HDR, for your feedback. And we wanted to bring it back to you to refresh everybody on where we're at with that, the vision statement, and also progress on the process that we're making with it. So as part of the presentation today, I'm going to go over the vision statement, the planning themes, preliminary framework, and plan organization, and then I'll give details on the status of the actual comprehensive plan rewrite and the next steps that we're going to go through in the approval process. So a vision statement is a high-level aspirational statement, and ours goes through the qualities of that make the city attractive and a sustainable place, and was based on feedback that we received during our community engagement. And so the vision statement for the comprehensive plan is, from the bay to the beach, Clearwater is a city of diverse, unique, and special places, livable neighborhoods, economic resiliency, friendly people, and amazing opportunities. And so when we began the process of the comprehensive plan rewrite, there was extensive community engagement done to make sure that we understood the expectations of the residents of City of Clearwater. And based on that, what we heard during this engagement and building on our vision statements, we came up with planning themes to help guide in the development of the comprehensive plan. And so we have those on the screen. And the City of Opportunity is the city offers opportunities to raise a family, to start a business, build a business, visit for a day trip, extended vacations, things of that nature. Livable and attractive places. The city's unique setting, rich in cultural history, locational advantages, strong neighborhoods, thriving downtown, quality parks and recreation. Sustainable and resilient environments is we're committed to being a good steward to the environment. We are going to take actions to focus on protecting our natural, our coastal, and our cultural resources. Connected and accessible destinations is we're going to strive for safe, accessible, and integrated mobility to assist our residents and our workers and our visitors with access to destinations and opportunities. Diverse and inclusive communities is the city celebrating our rich and history and heritage of our neighborhoods, as well as our diversity and broad range of educational, entertainment, cultural, recreational, and economic opportunities. And lastly, we have our cooperative and responsive governance. And that's where we provide quality and accessible communications to make sure we're engaging the public and ensuring transparency and openness in our communication, our collaboration, and our engagement activities. And so moving into our preliminary framework, it's a place-based approach to build on the design structure in our current plan. And we're using it as a point of reference to update the goals, objectives, and policies in the comprehensive plan. And we have 5 types of places that are used to describe the conditions in the city that represent a starting point for us to define the preferred conditions across the city to guide the objectives and policies for the plan. And I'll briefly go through those. The first one is city neighborhoods. We have diverse neighborhoods. They offer a wide range of housing and lifestyle options. And so the objectives of the policies of the plan are going to focus on conserving our older neighborhoods and our historic neighborhoods and stabilizing and sustaining the other neighborhoods to expand housing choice, increase affordability, and improve livability. We have downtown Clearwater and Clearwater Beach. These are our traditional centers for living, working, entertainment, and shopping. It's our most dense and walkable destinations. And so we'll focus on continued success of these areas and offer guidance on activating our vacant and underutilized properties, the character of the areas, and as well as mobility for our residents, visitors, and workers. Our mixed-use centers. Those are along US 19 and Fort Harrison. Again, those are for living, working, and shopping that can bring new life and opportunity to a more auto-oriented area. And our plan will focus on reinvestment and redevelopment opportunities to attract employment-intensive uses and improve access, connectability, and walkability. Our corridors and neighborhood centers, those are more local focal points in the communities that better serve our daily needs. And so our plan will focus on promoting a mix of uses that activate underutilized properties, improve mobility, and mitigate any impacts on adjacent neighborhoods. And lastly is our Hercules District, which is more of our industrial activity for smaller scale manufacturing, assembly, repair, maker spaces. So we want to focus on protecting this employment area while providing opportunities for a more broad range of employment-supported uses. So these themes were used to create new chapters for the plan. The current comprehensive plan is built more around elements that were required by Rule 9J5 that was repealed. And so we've kind of rearranged the comprehensive plan around chapters to make it a more easier to read document and more user-friendly. And so based on that, we have our 5 chapters. And so the mobility chapter is going to focus on our level of service for our roads, our safety, Vision Zero, complete streets, and other transportation-related items. Quality places will be for housing, land use, and our centers and corridors. Conservation and coastal management, of course, is going to be our flood hazards, coastal management, and natural resource protection. Parks and public places will be our parks, recs, community centers, and trails. And support service will be more utilities like our solid waste, water, stormwater, and wastewater. So our next steps in the process, right now we are starting to actually draft the chapters. We're drafting our goals, objectives, and policies and development of the plan. And so our hope is starting in the late fall here, early 2023, we're going to roll out the plan in multiple steps for community engagement. We're working on our first 2 chapters, which is mobility and quality places with HDR, our consultant. And then we'll have the remaining 3 chapters written by our staff. So what we would like to do is roll it out in phases. So we have the mobility and quality places. We'd like to take those when they're ready, post them on our website. We have the Clearwater2045.com website specifically for that, and that will give the public the opportunity to see where we're at, see what we're looking at, and then work with public communications to develop a communications plan that would include email blasts, public notices, social media campaign, to get people really involved, to let them know where we're at, to try and engage them. And also on the Clearwater 2045 website, we'll have the ability for people to make comments, to put in survey questions and things like that, to try and engage them in those chapters. And then once we have that out there for a little while, we're going to hold a couple of locational workshops just for those 2 chapters, and we would go through the same process for the second 3 chapters. And then when we have the whole plan ready, we would again do several locational workshops based on the whole plan for people who weren't able to make one of the other workshops. So we're trying to be very comprehensive in the public education opportunities that we have to get the public engaged and giving input on the plan. And so once we have all the public engagement complete, we're going to start to bring it forward through the review process, which will take several months. It starts with the city's Community Development Board, and that is anticipated for spring of 2023, and then it would end with the state review and approval, but that would not be till fall of 2023, so it is a very lengthy process to get it through the approval process. And so that is where we are at this point, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
But what you're really looking for today is comments on the vision statement?
Not necessarily.
Obviously, the timeline and whatnot, but...
Yeah, if you have any questions on the timeline or the engagement, I'll be happy to answer those, but it's more, we're bringing back the preliminary vision and framework. It's been tweaked from what you've seen, just to make sure you're still on board with it and making sure that's more a final document that we could probably post on the website so people know where we're at.
So my only issue with the vision statement is, are we truly economically resilient? And I don't know that we certainly aren't as resilient as I would like. I think we're still overly dependent on tourism. And, through the years, when you look at 9/11, the Great Recession, the Deep Horizon oil spill, COVID, we've really taken it on the chin from a tourism standpoint, and again, we're very reliant on it. So I don't know that I agree with that necessarily. I hope we're moving more and more towards it, but I don't know that we're there. The other question that I received today from a citizen was, should this vision statement jive with our overall strategic plan? I don't know that I necessarily agree with it. They're 2 different documents. They may rhyme, but I don't know that they need to be in lockstep. Would you have a comment on that?
I agree they don't necessarily need to be in lockstep, but as for the economic resiliency, it's going to ebb and flow with that. But the vision statement for the comprehensive plan doesn't mean that we are that right now. It means it's what we're aspiring towards.
So it's aspirational.
Right, and it will help us guide the goals and objectives and policies that we include to make sure that we are reaching that.
Okay. Councilmember Albritton?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Clearwater has a strong tourism market, and we're looking at other things that can enhance that. And we have an IT industry downtown that we're trying to build up. It's kind of a secret. Nobody really talks about it. But, we have no light industrial in Clearwater, and it would be, I really think that if we could get into our industrial area where we have the small little industry, in Hercules, and I know the city manager and I have talked about this, maybe start compiling those properties together to put some kind of light industrial here, that would help maybe, with our market. So I think that would help level the playing field, in those times when we have depressions and we don't have tourists coming here. I'd like to see that maybe in our strategic plan to, I think we were looking at hiring somebody that maybe can assemble those together and make something effective. That would be a good thing.
You had approved that position in the budget through the Economic Development Department, the real estate manager position, specifically focusing on the acquisition of properties that we could aggregate together to be able to make a difference. I did have a conversation with the county administrator about a possible Hercules CRA. Unfortunately, the county is looking to ratchet back the CRAs, but he said that there were other ways in which we could work together, for the Hercules area. So it is certainly a major focus for us.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Beckman?
Thank you. In comments about the vision statement, so I agree with the mayor in that it seems like we're not there yet as far as economic resiliency. So I was thinking, from the beach to the bay, Clearwater is committed to being, like you said, it's a little bit aspirational. We might not be there, committed to being. And I think it'd be nice to have the word leaders in there. We want to be seen as a leader in the county. And also, exceptional environmental stewards or something like that, because we've got, of diverse, unique, and special places, livable neighborhoods, economic resiliency, friendly people, and amazing opportunities. I think diverse, unique, and special places, those are kind of all the same kind of thing, those words, those descriptors there, but I think there's room for being seen as leaders, committed to being leaders, and exceptional environmental stewards would be nice to see something on there for the vision statement. Just my 2 cents. The other thing I'm thinking is with your timeline, are we going to have some overlap with strategic planning, resident engagement at all, which I think is going to be late fall, early next year, as well as feedback you might all be looking for? About
Unfortunately, I'm not involved with strategic planning, so.
Yeah, the council will have their all-day strategic planning session with a consultant December 6th.
Okay.
Is that right? December 6th. And then it'll take a period of time to just be able to pull all that together, put together the draft strategic plan. So the expectation is to have that draft of a strategic plan before you in mid-January.
Okay.
And so we can hopefully move that process to conclusion.
December 5th.
December
Monday,
5th.
December 5th.
December 5th.
Okay. And so, like you were saying, ideally they should be complementary, right? This one is more legally binding than our strategic plan, correct? Okay. And then I was particularly happy to see on slide, it's on the plan organization. You've got it it's like the introduction, the core chapters that you went through. Under conservation and coastal management, you have coastal management, flood hazard, natural resource protection. Would you anticipate in that core chapter to have an inclusion link or reference to Greenprint 2.0 that we've signed on to?
Yeah, we've been looking at Greenprint 2.0 to see what policies from that we want to pull forward into the comprehensive.
Okay, and then your note at the bottom says that sustainability, resiliency, equity, and collaborative planning are cross-cutting principles reflected in the themes and guiding the goals, objectives, and policies in each plan chapter. So where you don't have that under these bullets, we can assume that those key principles will be articulated in each chapter or addressed if necessary in each chapter. Fantastic. Okay. I think, I had,
Any other questions?
I think that's it.
All right, we look forward to the process. 8.1.
Thank you.
Authorize a purchase order to Ferguson Enterprise for the supply of backflow devices and parts in the annual not to exceed amount of $227,000.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Rich Gardner, Director of Public Utilities. These backflow devices are stocked in the Public Utilities warehouse and used to protect the water supply by preventing the flow of water back into the potable water system. There were 4 bidders for this contract, of which Ferguson Waterworks was the low bidder. The contract is for an annual not-to-exceed amount of $227,000 through September 30th, 2023, with 2 one-year renewals. I'm asking for your approval and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gardner? Consent? 8.2.
Authorize an increase on purchase order to Odyssey Manufacturing Company for liquid sodium hypochlorite.
Rich Gardner, Director of Public Utilities. The item before you today is an increase on a purchase order for a chemical used in the treatment at the water and wastewater facilities. Sodium hypochlorite, or bleach, is used for disinfection of treated water at the city's water and wastewater treatment facilities. The reason for the increase is due to a significant price increase of the chemical earlier this year. The new contract amount will be $888,500, representing an increase of $355,000, which will get us through the remainder of the contract, which ends in January of 2023. I'm asking for your approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Any reason not to rebid this?
We're going to rebid it in
January, but
Yeah, so this will get us through to the rebid.
is everybody experiencing the same increase? I mean,
Yes.
is it industry-wide?
Yeah, and all our chemicals, all our commodities are just going through the roof. I've never seen anything like this.
Okay. Consent? 9.1.
Mayor, this is my item. This is a request for a minor amendment to an existing outside counsel agreement we have. Back in 2018, the council at the time approved a lien foreclosure program. We have the law firm of Matthew Widener, who's been retained to represent the city in our lien foreclosures. That program's been pretty successful and has actually cleaned up some really bad properties. So I've been pretty pleased with how that program has been going overall. However, one aspect of the contract that I would like to tweak has to do with the accounting of how the money comes in and how it's reported and how we send money out. So under the current agreement that was drafted in 2018, when a case settles, let's say that the lawsuit settles for $100,000, to give an example. What will happen procedurally is that the entire amount comes to the city, so the $100,000 comes to us. We receive that money, have to process it through accounting, and then afterward have to cut a check back out of that same transaction to Mr. Widener because he gets paid on contingency fees. His contingency is approximately 1/3 of the settlement amount, depending on exactly when it happens in the process. I have not been fond of that because at best it creates extra accounting work, and at worst, there's a lot of possibility for errors. We don't really have a lot of great software or mechanisms to track the city receiving money in the same transaction that we're sending money out. And it's just not matching up well in terms of paperwork. So both to conserve staff time as well as reduce the possibility of errors, what we've discussed in Mr. Widener's office is to do it the other way around. Instead of us getting the full check and then cutting him back a check, a part of it, he will take the entire amount up front and simply cut us the check for our amount. We will be auditing it to make sure the amounts are correct, of course, but that will both conserve staff time and reduce the number of steps, which reduces the number of errors. But nothing is changing substantively. It's just a question of tweaking the contract, and happy to answer questions.
Any questions from Mr. Margolis? Consent?
Yes.
Any questions on second readings 9.2 through 9.4? Mr. Jennings, anything?
Mayor and Council, I wanted to take a moment, as I mentioned at the last meeting, of the incredible work our staff is doing in Charlotte County to help with the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. We've had 2 fire inspectors there. Recently they sent a video of one of the actual fire stations that they were inspecting, total loss It's incredible, the amount of damage that they're seeing. We've also had 15 police officers there assisting with various needs of the county. And then we've had 6 of our strike team from Parks and Recreation, and they're the ones that you've seen some of the pictures I've forwarded it to you with cleaning up the parks and recreation areas. We received an email from the Deputy County Administrator from Charlotte County. I just wanted to send a huge thank you to the City of Clearwater for the strike team assistance as we received in Parks and Recreation. My team shared with me what an asset your team to them and what a rock stars they were. I was able to get out today to see some of the work that they accomplished this week, and I am just amazed of how much progress they made. From our leadership team to yours, we are truly grateful for the support of our recovery process. So I just wanted to make sure that we continue to recognize the incredible staff that work for the City of Clearwater that's helping our neighbors in the south.
Well, away from their families, it's the type of mutual aid we would hope we would get from other areas. Hopefully we'll never have to use that, but I'm very proud of all of our staff, obviously, that are down there and have sacrificed, because that's what it is. We are very blessed that we did not have the storm hit us. Anything else, Mr. Margolis?
Just one thing to note for council, I will not be here Thursday evening. Mr. Kohler is here. There's a conference for public employment. I invited him to attend that conference, but he'd much rather be here with you guys, so I will attend the conference on Thursday, but he'll be here. So.
Looks to be a very stimulating agenda, what's left, so Mr. Kohler got off easy. All right. We'll look forward to that. Council discussion items. Update on NOFO regarding homelessness. Vice Mayor Beckman.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to this at the first agenda item. My computer's not behaving, obviously, here. I just wanted to give an update about the NOFO process for...
Do you want to explain to the public what that is?
Sure. So NOFO is Notice of Funding Opportunity when some entity has a pot of money and they want to distribute it via grants, and then you put out a notice of a funding opportunity with the parameters, and then nonprofits or other organizations can apply for that funding. And so there was a special NOFO from HUD that was specific to unsheltered homeless in Pinellas County. And so I sit on the Continuum of Care Executive Board, the vice chair. I'll be moving into the chair position at the beginning of next year. But anyway, part of that executive board is to, along with others who volunteer to help, evaluate those grant applications and score them with the hopes of distributing these funds to the people who do the work with unsheltered homeless in our county. So we're anticipating the county can get as much as $4,733,895. That hasn't been decided that we've gotten it yet, but we had to have the grant applications put out, ready to go, evaluated in case we do receive that money. That's the maximum that we could get. We're competing with cities throughout the nation, so cities like Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, that have extensive unsheltered homeless, struggles and challenges. We're right up there competing with them, and we're not that bad, thank heaven, as some of those other municipalities. So that's kind of, to answer some of the distribution of those funds, hopefully. But anyway, this was just an update on when we sent out this special notice of funding opportunity. We had 13 people submit grant applications. We had programs totaling $13,296,365 worth of proposed programs and uses in our county. Again, we have like a third of that available. I touched on some of the data points. You know, we have these no fewer at any time than 80 families we know with children that are living on the street. We have a fraction, absolute fraction of the shelter beds we need for families who suddenly become homeless. These were some of the programs that people submitted their applications for, were for case management, housing navigation, homeless outreach, scattered site permanent housing, supportive housing. So these are people that have some permanent disabilities and are not able to live maybe on their own, and they need supports. And so we have a years-long wait list for permanent supportive housing. Coordinated entry, housing stabilization, and the SOAR program. And we ended up allocating a lot of money to the SOAR program and home. And the SOAR program, again, if we get this funds, it'll go out. The SOAR program is a national program that works to supplement security income. These are adults and kids with disability, blindness, disability and or blindness, and over 65 income constrained, and Social Security disability income. This is mostly disability that relates to work and work credits. And so this is to outreach, access, and recover these funds, to educate and empower people to actually receive the money that they are entitled to. So there's federal money out there that people are entitled to that a lot of them don't know is out there or need help in accessing it and getting it. And so what better way? Those aren't local funds, right? It's just local funds to get them to get the federal funds that they're entitled to. So that was one of the things we allocated it to. The other was about $2 million to 5 homeless outreach mobile engagement teams, so home teams, homeless outreach mobile engagement. This would help pay for homeless outreach engagement specialists. One outreach engagement specialist is required to be a formerly homeless individual. So someone within the last 7 years or so has experienced homelessness. That's what HUD is really focusing on. We're going to be held accountable for having people who are formerly homeless engaged in all of our committee work, our executive board, and in programs that we deliver. So this is one way that we'll be doing that. One targeted case manager, supported by a supervisor, and this HMIS, which is the data entry software that nonprofits are required to pay for and utilize in order to get those federal funds. That's a cost. And so, we're going to fund that. And so the last thing is it's targeted and dispatched to help unsheltered individuals with severe service needs gain access to medical, social, educational, vocational, and other necessary services, either directly through, this would be Directions for Living that would receive this money, or through community partnerships that they would partner with. So an update on that, we're crossing our fingers that we do get that and can go out and make an impact in the county. For people, these are people that are sitting on benches and sleeping under trees at Crest Lake Park or something, shoot off of, sitting under trees by the 7-Eleven, by the trail, things like that.
Any questions? Thank you, Vice Mayor. Contingency rates, Councilmember Albritton.
Well, I had brought this up before. We get a lot of requests for different departments for money on contracts, and they put a contingency on there, and I feel that being a general contractor for years, whenever you're bidding something, it's usually in the contract, you put a contingency for price changes in materials and whatever. So I don't know why we have to bring that to council for that. I think we've got something do we have something in the ordinance that says we have some type of a contingency anyway?
We have two different types of contracts really when it comes to the contingencies. You know, one of them is all of our construction contracts, and I would distinguish our construction contracts from everything else, you know, that we do, all of our commodities and services. When it comes to construction contracts, we generally bid it as a GMP, meaning a guaranteed maximum price. That is designed, and as most governments, we want to have a ceiling on our liability. We don't want to have cost overruns or be responsible for that. So when we put out for a GMP, the contractor will give us one top dollar price and say, city, your price will not exceed this amount under any circumstances unless you have a change order or things like that. That GMP does, should, and normally will include a contingency. We typically do require that as part of the GMP. Where I had the concern personally about contingencies is outside of our construction contracts. So if we're buying commodities, products, widgets, as I call them, in those types of contracts, we probably should not have contingencies. I don't think there's any basis in our code to have contingencies. And the price for each widget is generally fixed. There's really no reason to have a cost overrun or anything like that when we're talking about goods. But when it comes to construction contracts, that GMP should include the contingency, whatever it is. Just one thing as an aside, if there's either a construction contract or more commonly a widgets or goods contract where, let's say, we underestimated what our needs were or just made a mistake or we hit things unexpectedly, whatever the widgets are, the city manager has the authority already to authorize a change order, and so he can authorize a 10% deviation as a change order authority. So my advice to the city in terms of our department heads has generally been that when we're talking about goods and commodities, it should come to council as a fixed price. But if we underestimated the number of widgets that we need, for example, then John has the authority to do a change order if needed, and they should really direct that through their chain of command to John for him to evaluate that. So that's my advice on this.
Yeah, I think, I'd rather see like we had today, a cost not to exceed amount, because that kind of gives me a little bit of, it gives them a little bit of flexibility, and it tells me it's not going to exceed that, so they can, if they think they need to bump it up, they can do it, but not use it all if they don't need to. But to just put out an amount and then say, and a 20%, a contingency, to me, that's an open door for, whoever we're dealing with to put 20% more on there and get away with it. So I'll just leave that to you, and maybe you have somebody, or city manager will have to bring that to us if we have to vote on that.
So I would say that under the current ordinance, it should not come to you in that way. Right now, when we put it out for a GMP, whatever price the contractor gives on their GMP should be inclusive of any contingency. If that's not the case, then something has gone wrong in the current process. However, to your question, council has total flexibility and total freedom to revise our ordinance in terms of what contingencies you're comfortable with or not comfortable with, both in the construction context as well as in goods and services. And so that is something that is totally within council's discretion by ordinance if you'd like to discuss or revisit that process.
My concern is with unusual outlier projects, with the 10% contingency, if it's an enormous project and you get into staggering dollar amounts. And the city manager and I have talked about some examples of that. And that's the only place that I think the process breaks down. I can support having the 10% without certain numbers that it can exceed. And if it exceeds some threshold amount, then I think it ought to have to come back to the council.
What threshold amount were you thinking?
Well, I mean, we basically did a ratify and confirm earlier this year on the amphitheater. And that was an amount I think should have come back to the council before it was expended. You have something, Dan?
I was just going to note that for our larger projects, even like imagine Clearwater, the contingency is much less than 10%, because that would be a very large amount. So
Right.
we actually take a step back and analyze the type of project it is. You know, years ago, I worked on a Long Center renovation project. That needed more than the typical 10% contingency, because we just didn't know what we were getting into when we were up with all the HVAC and dampers and things. So we really try to look at the project, the specific scope of the project, and include an appropriate contingency. And if it's a hard bid, we actually exactly put in that given percentage amount that we're requesting. The GMPs that Mr. Margolis was talking about, there's sometimes more flexibility in that, and that's when we'll say, 5%, 3%. So most of our vertical construction have less than 10%, significantly less than 10%.
But we exceeded the number that I'm comfortable with.
Right, that's, I think you're getting at when we have to bring it back to you. So again, we've got a 69, 70 million GMP with Skanska. So typically staff, we'd have up to 10% that city manager could approve before it comes back to council.
And
That's a difference.
I think we act as a backstop occasionally, should be. And in that instance, we didn't. So I don't know what the right number is. I mean, I would literally be pulling a number out of the air. But I'd say when it probably exceeds $250,000, I want to see it. And I don't think that's unreasonable. So, Mr. Jennings?
Thank you, Mayor. If you don't mind, I think from a staff perspective, we'd like to take a look at this and really do an exercise of looking back at a lot of our contracts, and then bring that forward to all of you in a presentation, and then maybe some recommendations as to how we kind of move forward. So if that is amenable to the board, or to the council, that would be wonderful.
Everyone comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay. New business for future meetings? Any items that anyone would like to have added, Vice Mayor?
I do. I would like at the next meeting, I guess, to have, and I'll provide you with information, have us consider signing on to the Thrive by Five Memorandum of Understanding. This is Thrive by Five. I sit on their board as well, but it's a countywide organization. It's a county organization that, it's not from Pinellas County, but it's an organization that focuses on Pinellas County service providers to families and caregivers for early childhood learning. And their goal is to have children thrive and be school-ready by 5 years old. And they're asking for different municipalities and organizations to sign on, and they'd like, I'd like the city of Clearwater to consider signing on. So if I can share some information with you before the next work session, maybe we can discuss it.
And what that obligates us to.
Right, but they've got the whereas, and then they've got the other. And then the other thing is, I really would like an education, a tutorial on the TDC, an overview of it. When was it started? How do they get their funds? What account is it in? Who controls that money? How does it get distributed? How has it been distributed? What's the accountability for it? All that kind of thing. I don't know that information. I'd like to have a better understanding. It doesn't need to go back, 50 years or however old, but, like within the last 5 or 10 years. What are those funds? What is our accessibility to those funds? How do you apply for them? And I don't have any idea how that works. Would like to know.
Well, you can pull up, I'm happy to do or have a discussion, but you can also go on and see all of the designations. It's 6 cents, and there are splits. Each penny has specific designations that they can be used for. TDC's been in place for well over 30 years. It's a county-wide organization. The tax collector gathers the revenues from hotels and also now from vacation rentals. And a large portion of it has to be used for advertising and promotion. And then there is a segment of it that can be used for capital. And those capital expenditures can be used for different categories. It is all very prescriptive in the way that it is used.
If we could have someone from the TDC, do a presentation to all of us.
I'd like you to formulate your questions specifically so they can be answered.
By the presenter?
I mean, you obviously have specific questions. I couldn't jot all of those down.
Okay. I guess so. Sure. It's just, if they were giving an instructional class to, students at a college level class about what the TDC is, it just, I would think 15 or 20-minute presentation, but I can develop some questions.
Well, I want to make sure your questions are answered.
Okay.
If I don't know what the questions are, I can't have Mr. Hayes answer them. I can probably answer almost all of them.
Okay.
But, and then you can also look at the TDC document, which again is extraordinarily prescriptive about how the money can be used and must be used for advertising versus capital. But it comes all from bed tax.
Okay. Sounds good. I'll develop some questions. Thanks.
I want to have another discussion. Mr. Jennings forwarded me some information that I asked about for the library. And since the decision was made for moving forward with the City Hall, I have had a lot of questions from citizens. The more I've thought about that, the fact that we didn't have a public meeting out in the community about it, I think is surprising and maybe a little bit disappointing. I know that the vice mayor has asked for public meetings on many of occasions for expenditures that don't come close to $34 million. And so I want to have another discussion about the City Hall. So if that could be agended for the next work session, I would appreciate it. I want people to be on the record as knowing some of the facts and figures. Anything else? All right, we're adjourned till Thursday.